In this day and age, there are cyber attacks. Being a small company, you may not be the obvious target, but sometimes cyber attacks are very broad and attack everyone who has some property in their system. So I think there is a playbook. Number one, stop the attack, disconnect, isolate, preserve evidence as you do it, and assemble a crisis team where it's a small team, people have clear roles, both about stopping the attack, analyzing the attack, communicating about the attack. But just stop the attack. Then go get help. Go figure out who in the company is best informed. Go find people outside the company, a security consultant, an incident response team. If you have cyber insurance, get them notified at least. Then figure out what's the scope of the impact. How broadly hit were you? What data was exposed? How many systems were exposed? When exactly did it start and stop? So that you can draw a box around it. Then start communicating. Make sure that the internal team is very well aligned. You don't want a situation where some people in the company are telling one story and other people some other story so that it seems very muddled. Notify customers as soon as you have some inkling of what's going on. And it's more important to be quick than thorough in the first notification of customers. You will get a chance to be more thorough later, but be honest, be short, and be clear. There may be regulatory things that you need to report, so do that. Then you need to start working with the customers to recover, to help understand what protective actions they need. You need to demonstrate your commitment to customers. And then you clean up, you learn, you patch the hole, you reset things, you turn on better security, you figure out what you could have done better, and you write it down so that you are both preparing the system to be more robust against future attacks, and you have a better action plan the next time you have an unexpected security attack or cyber attack. Because you're not going to plug every hole. So you need to be planning ahead a bit about what's going to happen. In the very early days, this may be a very simple process of monitoring and responding. As you get bigger, as you have more customers, as you have much more attack surface as a company, you may need to do a lot more. So the sophistication of your defense, the sophistication of your planning grows over time. You may have legal troubles. You may be accused of patent infringement. You may identify that competitors are violating your patents. You need to decide what to do about that. This is the place where having a bigger portfolio is good. Not that necessarily your competitors are violating all of it, but there is a presumption that if you have a big enough portfolio and somebody else has a big enough product line, that with enough work, you would find some patent that applies to their product. So, one of the classic things that happens among bigger companies is that, some big company accuses you of patent infringement and you turn around and accuse them of patent infringement, and eventually you settle, balancing off the size and likelihood of violation. In smaller companies, you have a small patent portfolio. Your direct competitors, if they're also small, have very small patent portfolios. And so it probably should be pretty gross, overt patent infringement to do it, because you really don't want to spend time in court. Litigation is not your strength. Litigation is very slow. Litigation is extremely expensive. You can spend millions of dollars in following up on one seemingly simple patent infringement by a competitor. So you have to decide whether you really want to spend the company's resources on that. There are also copyright and trademark infringement, these are not usually such big crises, with the exception of somebody who has, scraped all of the internet for their large language model training, may be violating copyrights or in such vast quantities that it becomes really important. Often it's just a mistake that somebody used a piece of code or used an image or used some text that they shouldn't have. You will sign NDAs with customers, with partners, with suppliers, and you need to be very clear that you are in fact protecting that that proprietary information that you're given, and make sure that everybody who handles it knows that it's covered. It's very useful to have a central repository of all the NDAs that you have signed so that it's easy to figure out who you have an NDA with and who you don't. Certainly, you can get into reputational trouble if people think that you're playing fast and loose with their proprietary information. They will rarely actually sue you over it, but the reputational damage that comes from people saying that you have been spreading their secrets is bad. You may get into product liability questions. That usually only happens when you have a big product that's out there and used by a lot of people. Employment issues can happen at any size of company. And so, first of all, in terms of hostile work environment or harassment, you just need to stay well away from it. Really be aware of what your company climate is and really make sure that people are not doing this, because even if you don't get into legal trouble, the internal damage among your team can be enormous if people think that this is a place where some people are disadvantaged or being abused. It's possible that there is corruption. You may find that, I don't know, it's theoretically possible your head of sales, who is so good at closing business, is actually spending money to pay off your customers to take the product, and that what it appears that you're selling, the deal that you think you're making, is not what the company is signed up for. Wrongful termination suits really do happen. They usually get settled out of court, but it does mean that you have to pay attention to doing the paperwork. It can't be arbitrary. You have to be able to document the reasons why you're terminating somebody. Sometimes it is wrapped in a veneer of, well, our business needs us to have a different skill set than what is here. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's an effort to try to circumvent wrongful termination. You've got to really make sure that you are ready for someone to come back and say, this is wrongful termination. Very often it means that you reach a settlement, an agreement, to sort of say, well, I will vest your stock, or I will give you this payment in return for a release on any possible claims of wrongful termination. One thing that happens very often in the early history of companies is that you and your close colleagues at big company X all leave together to go start a company. And whoever is the first or the most senior person to leave then gets a letter from the lawyers of big company X saying, you signed an agreement that you would not poach our people, that you would not recruit the people from this company. And it appears that you are poaching. So we just want to let you know that we take this very seriously. That letter is pretty routine. Typically, your lawyers will send a note back that says, we're not poaching. And we promise once again, not to poach in the future. Um, and that's it. Nothing further happens. It usually makes sense to try to avoid something that looks like poaching, make an extra effort that makes it clear that somebody is leaving on their own, not because you recruited them. Uh, but you get into a gray zone there. It usually doesn't amount to very much, but big companies can slow down uh, large teams leaving together with a few well-placed letters. It's worth repeating that legal issues do develop in slow motion. They take years to resolve and they can hang over you for a long time, and that's bad. You don't want to have to tell your board of directors that so and so continues to threaten to sue you, because that can drive off investors, because no investor wants to invest in a company believing that any significant part of their investment dollars are going to go pay lawyers. So uh, having pending legal issues can make you unattractive. And that's why you want to avoid them and resolve them if you can. Don't, and my general advice is don't start a legal issue unless you have really compelling reasons. Don't go start suing somebody for patent infringement, because you're going to just get into a swamp of issues that are very expensive, and you cannot predict how they will play out.